Welcome to the On Stage podcast, where we interview musicians and members of the entertainment community. We have Mike Roi from Roi and the Secret People, consisting of 5 band members. They're renowned for their exhilarating live shows, award-winning rock band Roi and the Secret People. They feature songwriter Mike Roi on lead vocals, guitar, Ed Golden, AJ Siegfried on bass, Madelaine Elizabeth on vocals, violin and keys, and Pete Ciccone on drums.
Yep. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
You just have to look at below at the description and you'll get everything you need there. But welcome, Mike. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. Great to connect.
Thank you so much. So could you give our audience an idea of who is Mike Roi, Roi and the Secret People, and how did you start from when you were growing up to when you were finally putting your roots down in Easton, Pennsylvania to now?
Well, let's see. I'll start way back. I'm from Jupiter, Florida. And so I grew up in South Florida and kind of was in music programs since elementary school with the recorder, and then graduated to the clarinet because I thought it was a saxophone, but I didn't know what the saxophone was called in the 5th grade. So somebody said, "Oh, the clarinet." And I thought, yeah, that's it. So I played the clarinet for a long time. And then throughout high school, there was a battle of bands in high school. My friends and I were putting together a band. Nobody knew how to play their instruments. I decided I wanted to be a part of that. So I picked up the bass guitar, was absolutely horrible at it. And in doing so, they realized, hey, you kind of are a better singer than our singer. And so why don't you just quit that bass because you're so terrible at it and sing? So we did. And we were so bad that we didn't really, all the covers we were trying to play were just we were just murdering them. So we started writing our own stuff. And because that way, what can you do? It's our stuff. So from the very first band, I started my journey into songwriting, and I've always just done original music since then. And I don't know, fast forward, the band I was in, we kind of got better. We put a couple recordings out. We did a couple short tours throughout high school, right out of high school. And it morphed into a few different variations of said original rock band, from heavy metal into alternative to, singer-songwriter. We found ourselves meeting with some people from a record label who wanted us to get out of Florida, or if we were going to stay in Florida, we needed to stay in Miami, which we didn't want to. We've been to Miami a million times, so we decided to move up north. So we decided to move to Philadelphia. So we moved to Philadelphia with the band, played the bejesus out of Philadelphia for a long time. The band kind of split up. I took my stuff and then I ended up moving to New York City. And there in New York City, my years in New York City, I was there for about 10 years. And during that time, ended up forming Roi and the Secret People. And Roi and the Secret People is all my friends that were recording on my first record, which I was going to put out as a solo record. My producers were telling me, no, man, this is a rock record. You got to have a band. So I had so many friends in different bands coming and going for each show that I was doing. I just called it the Secret People because I didn't know who was going to be on what show and vice, yada, yada. We played all over the place, did some short Eastern Seaboard tours, then I ended up moving to Brooklyn, and then I ended up moving here to Lehigh Valley in Easton. And still, we released a few more albums. So we're working on a new one. It's still Roi and the Secret People, but the people that I have in the band now are a little more stable. They've been in the band for a little longer. So that's been great. And and that's kind of where we're at now. And it's always been original music, rock based, a little bit of Southern twinge from, when I was growing up. But we try to keep it, as fresh as possible in the rock world.
That's very interesting. Let me ask you about Madelaine Elizabeth, who's on vocals, violin, and keys. So tell me about her days as a violin player. What was that like for her?
So with Madelaine, Maddie, I guess that she was schooled at a young age. Her dad is actually the guitar player, Ed, and he's a very musical guy. He's a luthier at Martin, so she's always been around music. And so since he's been in the band, we used to have her guest with us. And apparently she was like, went to school. She got schooling for the violin, some classical work, piano wise as well. And she's really into R&B and that kind of a genre of music. So she kind of like brings that whole classical R&B vibe into like what we're doing. So it kind of like gives it more of a smoother edge to our
So
sound.
Maddie's father is Ed Golden?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know another
Yes.
band, Bad Mary. Amanda's father is in the band. He plays drums. So not very many
Okay.
bands out there where family members are in the band, except maybe the Hansons, whatever. But if I had a
Right.
band, I would not want a member of my family anywhere near my band.
You know, it's funny because like when we travel and we play out and stuff, we're, you know, we can get, you know, a little raunchy here and there or whatever. And so when we decided to have her become a permanent member in the band and be a part of our sound and add to our songwriting, um, well, I had to go to Ed and I said, look, you know, we're kind of like nuts and stuff, like backstage and stuff. Are, you know, what do we have to tone anything down? And he was like, not at all. He's like, she's like a guy. She's like, and she is. She's totally like hanging out with like a dude. She's like one of my drinking buddies. So it hasn't been an issue at all.
That's awesome. So how about Ed? Now he's on guitar. How long has he been a rock and roller?
Ed has been in bands, I guess, in the Lehigh Valley. Oh wow, I would say since the late '80s, mid '80s.
Wow.
He was like in the hair metal days and all that, with his long hair and jumping around. Probably was wearing spandex. I think I saw an old picture of him like that. It was pretty funny. So he's been playing guitar his whole life. He is actually an amazing he plays a lot of classical music on nylon string
Wow.
guitars. He's classically trained, but he's got a great ear and can usually just pick anything up like that. And he's been a huge asset towards this last version of our songwriting. So it's been great. He was a luthier at Martin Guitars for a long time. So actually, the guitar I play now, he built. Um, and yeah, we ever have any problems with our instruments, we just give them to him after rehearsal, and you know he takes care of it. We never have to bring it to a store or anybody.
Well, that's amazing. Does Ed and Maddie, do they keep family issues and family conversation outside of the band?
Yeah, yes, they do. None of that stuff ever has ever really reached into the. Sometimes, and we constantly forget that they're related because it's literally just like a band, and her and him have a great relationship. There's it's a very drama-less band, which I love. So it just makes it more fun, you know.
So how about AJ Siegfried, who's on bass? Like, how does that compare to Ed's playing and your playing? Like, do you ever have like thunderstruck issues? Like thunderstruck, like who can play thunderstruck better? Who can
Right,
play smoke on the water better? Do you ever have those kind of like do do
right.
do 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 kind of things?
Yeah, yeah. No, no. AJ, it's funny enough. Our longtime bass player, Glenn Radomski, was in the band for a long time. An amazing bass player. And the beginning of this year, he had some issues that he had to leave the band and go take care of within his family.
Mm.
So he left right before. I think we had a month downtime before we had a bunch of shows coming up. So I called up my friend AJ, who is an amazing heavy metal drummer, B is an amazing rock metal guitar player, and I said, "Hey man, you ever play the bass?" And he said, "No." And I was like, you want to play the bass in my band?" And he was like, "Yeah." So he came in and just quickly adapted to all our songs and learned a lot of the bass parts. And so he was able to jump in. I think we had 3 rehearsals before our first show. Um, and it's just been working out swimmingly because not only are him and I like super tight, but now all of us, he's integrated himself and bonded himself within the rest of the group. So the whole dynamic is now again the machine that, you know, the engine is working. So
Hence, Roy and the Secret People.
yeah.
Now, what about Pete Ciccone on drums? Was he your first audition, or did you say we're going to get Pete no matter what? We don't need to audition anybody else.
No, we had, you know, it's funny, right before COVID, Craig Martin was our drummer my time here in the Lehigh Valley. So when I moved here, Craig was my first drummer, and Craig is one of the best drummers that I've ever played with. An amazing rock drummer. He did a few stints with some bigger bands on the West Coast in the '80s and stuff. He during the course of COVID, the band kind of just took a big break, and I started pursuing another project, and everybody just kind of lost touch. He ended up getting married and he moved away.
Oh,
So Pete was always somebody that I've been in contact with since I used to teach vocals at the School of Rock. Pete was one of the drum instructors at the School of Rock, and we would always, you know, see each other and talk. So I know he's completely different than Craig. He's not a metal drummer. He's a very progressive rock, math rock kind of in the pocket, loves R&B. He plays everything. So he came into the band and just fit in like a glove. And, you know, it just added a whole new breath of fresh air and a whole new dynamic. And so all these new songs coming out, I don't think would have sounded anything like they do, you know, and not saying anything about the older members, but it's been a lot of fun having him on drums.
I can imagine that. What is your song process, Mike? For instance, the song Golden. I like the video where you're just talking to each other in this kind
Yeah,
of like
that's
field. Now, am I under the impression that Golden is like Ed Golden's, or is this a totally different?
it's funny. No, it was, so we were trying to write a song with a guitar riff for the summer. We thought, let's get a summer song together with, you know, a guitar riff oriented, you know, song riff. So Ed came up with the song riff. I started coming up with the melodies. I was like, oh yeah, you know, I just got back from the Jersey Shore, you know, partying all the time with some friends, blah, 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 blah. So I was kind of writing about that, writing about, you know, just taking that break from, you know, the winter and working really hard and, you know, just letting loose. And I said, you know, it's really, really nice to achieve that balance between work and play. And I was like, you know, we're all something. We're all something when we're in that zone, that mind frame. And I was coming up with all these words, and it was a 2-syllable word. And it was, at first I was like, are you lonely? And I was like, nah, I don't know about that. Are you something, something? And Ed, if you ever talk to Ed, we call him the Buddha because he's very just one personality. If he's happy, he's like, I'm really happy. If he's mad, he's like, I'm really mad. Like he's just even keel. He
One of
doesn't talk a
those.
whole lot. And when he does talk, we listen because I'm a motor mouth, as you can tell. But we listen to him because it's always words of wisdom. And so I said, you know, man, I wish we were all golden. And then I was like, ding! I was like, oh, okay. So that's where the golden came from.
It's an awesome video. I like your sound.
Oh, thank you.
I really like your sound. Um, Many of your band members, they seem to have ability to play more than one instrument. Like we mentioned, Madelaine Elizabeth is on vocals,
Yeah.
violin, and keys. When you write a song, is Maddie like, I don't want to use the keys on this song, Mike? Do you mind if I just use the violin because I'm gravitating toward that instrument? Or is it like, no, that's okay. I don't mind not using the violin and this song. I'll use the keys. Like, how does that work for you? How do you determine who plays what and what part?
It's funny because I think everybody but me plays multiple instruments. Everybody in the band, like, and they play multiple instruments very well, but me. And so I think with her, it's I don't really tell anybody what to do. Like when the song is being written, everybody's just throwing it down, and she'll actually maybe do the riff on a piano, and then she'll play it again, and then she'll pick up the violin, and we'll be like, oh yeah, 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 that sounds great, or maybe this, maybe that, maybe both, depending on the part of the song. And then on top of that, she's doing all the harmonies and everything else, and sometimes sharing lead with me. So we kind of leave it up to her in a way, but she also at the same time reciprocates, and then it says, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And so it's a very group oriented songwriting thing that I'm doing now with the band. Whereas before I just basically, did everything. I wrote the song and would go in and record it, and then have, producers or whatever. And we would just put different parts on. And so it's a real band experience, which brings me back to when I first started being in a band, writing with a bunch of yahoos. Love those guys. I still keep in touch with all the guys I've ever been in a band with over the years, so it's been great. And but yeah, it's really nice to get out from just being a singer-songwriter with a band to actually having a band, vested skin in the game with the songs.
So, with these band members that you used to be in a band with, that you're still in contact with, have any of them reached out and say, "Is there any place for me, or can I be in the band?" And well, if Maddie can't play, or Ed can't play, I'll replace them. You ever gotten that?
I've had over the years, I've had a few friends that I haven't been in bands with, just say, hey, Mike, keep me on that crazy list that you have. It's like, okay, okay. But for the most part, usually band members would come and go because people would move. And
Mm.
so, when they move, they move. I can't really do anything about that. But yeah, I would say, oh my God, I don't know how many people that have been in and out of Roy and the Secret People, at least like 12, 13 people. And I'm still friends with all of them, I think, but two, but that's a whole nother story. But everybody, all my childhood friends that I was in my first band with, we all still, we'll see run into. I'll go down to South Florida and run into those cats, and we'll have like little get-togethers and reunions every like 5 years or so, and jam, and it's been it's cool.
How are their bands doing?
Well, I would say almost all of them aren't in bands anymore. They all have
Oh,
families now. They actually became responsible, mature adults, raising children, and you know, have great jobs and stuff like that. And they're like, "Oh, Mike, you're still a masochist," and I'm like, "Yep, still in the music business." So,
oh. Okay. Um, yeah. So your group, it says that your group is a group of talented, experienced, and like-minded musicians. Were you especially like-minded with your other bands that you were in, or do you find this particular group you're in now like-minded?
um, yeah, I think that's a subconscious thing, because if I look back, I think all the members that I've played with over the years, uh, Florida, Philadelphia, New York City, in Manhattan, then into Brooklyn, and then here, have all been people that it's very important for me to be in a band with somebody that I can connect to on a personal level and a friendship level. Um, like I said before, like I don't do drama very well, so I don't really have time for that. I like to have fun and concentrate on the art and the
Hmm.
some of the serious side of music. Um, and I figure if you're going to travel with people, you want to travel with your friends. You don't really want to spend time with, oh, you're a great musician, but your attitudes, so that doesn't I have a lot of friends in bands like that, and it's just not something I'm interested in. So I think that's where it starts for any audition I do, is that like-mindedness without thinking about it like that. I like to talk to people and see where we connect as people, and then get into the musical abilities and stuff like that, and then do an audition. And I think that has fortunately set a good bar for me to always have really high level musicians to play with. So,
Wow. It must be
yep.
nice to actually be part of a group you consider to be your family, that not only do you play together, you probably eat together, you probably talk amongst yourselves together. That
Yeah,
must
we
be
do.
nice.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of
so,
laughs.
so you don't have any worry that Maddie or Ed or this, I decided to leave the band for other reasons. You would have to go quickly find a replacement.
Right. I would. And I've had to. I've had to over the years. That has come up in certain situations, and I've been able to do it. And if not, I also do a lot of singer-songwriter stuff. And I'm like, if and I haven't been in this position in a long time, but if I ever find myself in a position to where it's just me, well, I can do that. So because I've done it. And so I'm like, all right, that's cool. But yeah, I don't hold anybody back if they want to do something to forward themselves or make better themselves, or I mean, and that's why I think I've maintained a lot of my close friendships with ex band members and stuff. Like I had a guitar player that we were very close, but he ended up having an opportunity to go to Australia and collaborating with an artist in Australia. And I was like, if you don't go, and this artist was signed, and I was like, if you don't do that, you're an idiot. So he went off, and that was sad for me to lose him. But he ended up winning like an Australian Grammy for one of the tunes that he wrote and stuff, and that was really
Nice.
cool to see. And I just think people are free to choose their own life adventure, and if their life path right now is with me and doing what I'm doing, then I try to make the most of it while they're with me. But nothing ever lasts forever, and I don't get possessive over that kind of a situation.
That's interesting. You're talking about previous band members and people come and go. It brought to mind. Are you familiar with the band Panic at the Disco, Brendan
Yeah.
Urie?
Oh yeah.
Well, talking about band members coming and going, many of his band members came and went and come and go. He said, "You know what? If you're going to hire Panic at the Disco to play, that's me. I am Panic." But how do you feel when Mike Roi leaves his own band?
No, no, no. I don't think anybody would want to take that name, A, and B, like I say, I do a lot of solo shows and a lot of acoustic stuff as well. I'm a singer-songwriter stuff on my own as well. So um I don't I don't really think that if Ed was like, hey, if I was like, I mean, my other project that I started, I named it Pistol Witch, and that was an old Western. I think I was watching a lot of Westerns during COVID, but it was like this old 1860, late 1860s, mid 1860s storyline of a female bounty hunter, and I did this whole EP on it. Put it up on Bandcamp and kind of secretly. I didn't really tell people about it, but it's up there. It's under Pistol Witch, the Ballad of Annabelle. And actually, I ended up having most of my band play on it just because I'm like, it was my only way to get them to come in and like hang out with them. But yeah, I don't foresee anybody, leaving the band and wanting to take Roy and the Secret People, and I'm Mike Roi. And the reason why it's called the Secret People, as you know, is because it's like boop, 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 boop. It could be, a numer any, so
That's true. But you know who your band members are, so you ever thought
I
of
know.
dropping the Secret People?
Yeah, but I mean, there's two new band members that came in, and the other two, are God bless them, are
Yeah.
doing, something else in life. But
So this is interesting. So when it comes to performing, like I see that you've done numerous festival shows. It's Musikfest, Libertyfest, Baconfest, bacon,
yeah,
um,
that's a fun one.
and Make Music, New York City, Heritage Day, all this. Now, can I ask if how you prepare for a performance? Is it the same as every festival you did, or like for instance, for Roy and the Secret People doing Music Fest, we have to prepare our songs, blah blah blah. And now you're going to Liberty Fest. Is it the same idea, the same way you prepare, or do you do something differently everywhere you go?
I don't really, we don't have any rituals per se to prepare or anything. It's kind of like, how long are we playing for? Oh, you're playing for 30 minutes. You're playing for 2 hours. I think the longest show we ever did, which we will never do again because we're an original band, was a 4-hour show. So
4 hours.
yeah, that was a once off thing. And we challenged ourselves to do it. And in doing that, we ended up taking a 3-minute song and we would just extend it to like 10 minutes. Um,
Really? Wow.
yeah, at Baconfest this year, we did Baconfest again this year. There was a ton of people there. We ended up being short with our set list for about a half hour, 20 minutes. So our last song, we extended our last song, Dog Street, which is a 3.5 minute song, into 17 minutes. And within that 17 minutes, I think we made up 3 songs on the spot to kind of just, and nobody knew what we were doing, you know, that people were digging it, but you know, we just kind of amuse ourselves on stage. We call certain songs time killers. So like, we need a time killer, and it's like, all right, bring out that song, and then that song can just jam until, you know, and I'll riff on melodies and pretend it's a new song, and that's the greatest thing about having guys like this in my band, is they all can follow each other. They all, you know, just everything is jam bandy, but not jam bandy, because it doesn't sound jam bandy, but it's that same sense. It's that same jazz jam band kind of follow this guy until he switches it up, and follow that guy, and these guys are all able to do that, in which, you know, I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by people like that.
What about your favorite festival? Was it Musikfest, Libertyfest, Baconfest? Maybe you got free bacon or something. What
Oh
do
my
you
God,
think was the best festival
so
that
many
you were at?
food festivals. There's so many food festivals. I can't believe it. There's Garlic Fest. We played a Tomato Fest, Strawberry Fest. Okay, anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say our favorite festival to get into, when we do get into it, up to now, has been Musikfest. And Musikfest is, I think it's in the top 5 like music festivals in the country. It's in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We've had a very successful run over the last number of years, being invited to play. We've always gotten to play at a good time slot with a lot of people there. Always well received. We meet a lot of new people every time we play. We do that. It's just been fantastic. We look forward to that every year. So I would say Musikfest is my favorite, and the band's favorite to play at.
Do you get girls throwing their articles of clothing at you and
I
stuff?
don't think that happens anymore. I think this day and age, none of that stuff happens. I don't know. Although I did see Tom Jones. I'm going to say no, I do not. But I did see Tom Jones in Vegas. I don't know, 6 years ago or so, 7 years ago, and that they were still doing that with Tom, and I was flabbergasted. There was girls from 20 to, like, you know, 82 throwing garments at him, and it was so entertaining, and I was like, I would love to be that guy and have that career. That guy is amazing. I love Tom. I love Tom Jones.
What's new, pussycat? Whoa!
Hold on a second. Hold on right there, Chris. Hold on, man. I'm going to show you something. Just so you know, I'm not goofing around, man. My record collection right on the other wall. Who's that? Tom Jones. What's
Tom
new,
Jones.
That's right. Tom Jones is the man besides Bowie.
Wow, you don't look like a Tom Jones guy.
I grew up on Tom Jones when I was really little. My parents loved Tom Jones, and they listened to a lot of country music, but Tom Jones was always in my house playing all the time. Tom Jones and Neil Diamond, and those were my 2 major influences to sing. Believe it or not, that's my first album I ever bought. Well, I bought 2 albums: Kiss Destroyer when I was 9 years old, and Neil Diamond, the jazz singer. So
were you doing a few riffs on your guitar when Tom Jones riff? What's new?
No, but I was studying his tone and the way his lung capacity and how he can hold these power notes. I love power singers, so that's my favorite.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. So
Brendan Urie, Panic at the Disco. Like he's a power singer. Now talking
yeah,
about
he's a
Tom
power
Jones,
singer.
there's a song called "Come Home." Is my favorite song, a Tom Jones song. That's my
Yeah.
favorite song. And next, what's new? Pussycat's a favorite. There's a few Tom Jones songs I like, and a few Neil Diamond songs I like. Roy and the Secret People are told, or you yourself said, that you have the sound sort of like a Bowie type um, Black Crowes type sound.
Yeah.
When anybody listens to you, do they say, "Hey, you sound like David Bowie and Crows"? What kind of
Sometimes.
sounds have you gotten from people? I'd be interested. What?
Wow. It's been. I get stuff all the time that I'm like, oh, I've never heard that before, or oh, I've never heard that before. I've gotten everything from, oh, I hear you. Some of your stuff's your vocal style reminds me of like Neil Diamond and Bruce Dickinson, or you,
Wow.
the music has a very like a and that was we heard that a lot for a little while, the Bowie Black Crowes thing. And then there was we went through a phase to where I was getting a lot of, oh, this song reminds us of the Red Hot Chili, like this style is like Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was like,
Oh
really?
yeah.
That's kind of weird, but okay, that's cool. And Bon Jovi, and I was like, okay,
Oh,
whatever, man. Um,
nice.
and so people are always, because people want to throw something out there to kind of compare an original artist to give you a better idea of what's in the box, what flavor you're gonna get. Um, so we've run the gambit of Michael Hutchins and
Mm,
NXS stuff to,
wow.
again, all the way to Neil Diamond, to David Bowie, to Mick Jagger, or Stones, very like Stone sounding stuff, which is lays more along the lines of the Black Crowes, Chris Robinson, that kind of stuff. So it kind of goes all over the place, which is great. And at the same time, I think sometimes people, they don't know what to do with that, but you know,
Yeah, that's
it's rock and
amazing.
roll.
You got some really, really good songs there. Now I want to ask you about your first album, Dog Street. Now,
Yeah.
it includes a mixture of tunes from sort of like the haunting song Firefly. Can you tell me how that came to be, Firefly?
So Firefly, when I had first moved to New York, um, I had gone into Brooklyn to hang out with some friends, and they were like, we had a great time. And they brought me to this park, and I was like, this park is amazing. This is, it's not Central Park. It's this park. It was Prospect Park. This park is amazing. Oh my God, there's so much cool stuff in here. And they're like, hey man, when you get off the train, all you gotta do is walk 5 minutes anytime, and you're in this park. So you should come to this park one time and bring your lunch and just enjoy it. So I started to do that before I had moved into Brooklyn, and I was there one time. I was eating sandwich or whatever, and I had my guitar, and I was laying on the grass, and I was looking at the sky, and it had gotten, the evening was coming in, and there was all these fireflies around, and I just started playing of three simple chords, and then I wrote the whole song there, and it was, that was Firefly. And I was, at the time, I was a singer songwriter. I didn't have a band. I was just playing around New York by myself, and so that's where that song came from.
Wow. Well, I agree that a lot of musicians, bands, they have to write songs according to their experience. I'm dying to know what the whole Dog Street experience is all about. You're chased by dogs or something?
No, that would be awesome. Have I ever been chased by dogs? I don't think so. I love dogs. I got a killer dog over here. Anyways, um, Dog Street. I spent a time in New York. I was homeless for a little while, and so I
Oh,
had a house of roommates who, for whatever reason, decided they wanted one of their friends to move in, and I didn't really know them that well. And so I kind of got the, you need to leave by the end of the month. We're getting this other guy in. And so I had nowhere to go. And so my brother was like, come back to Florida. You can live with me until you get back on your feet. And I had just gotten laid off from one of my jobs in New York, and I was freelancing at the time. And I was like, no, man, I'm going to make it work. I got a lot of friends here. And if I leave New York, I'm not coming back. So I'm going to stay here. So I stayed there and busked for, I don't know how, I busked for a long time in the subways and like in the park and stuff, and kind of lived off that. I couch surfed for a long time. Um, but in doing so, I ended up getting this killer job at a fashion magazine reviewing restaurants. And so I was a restaurant reviewer with a friend of mine who, it was funny because I didn't tell my job that I was, didn't have a place to live. I had all my stuff at a warehouse on the west side of Manhattan. It cost me $99 a month. This little storage
Wow.
unit. That's where I kept my stuff, but I couldn't sleep there. So um, I fortunately did have a lot of musician friends. I would just, spend the nights at their places and stuff when I could. But anyway, so I ended up making enough money to get back on my feet, getting rent, paying rent at a place, found a place to lay my head. But that whole time, it kind of, it was a crazy time because only in New York can you be, and I don't want to say homeless, but basically homeless, but yet you're just hanging out and having the time of your life. And it was such a vagabond bohemian part of my life. And during that section, and basically that's what the song is about. I was like, I'm just living on Dog Street because it's, there's kicked in TVs, there's trashed houses. I mean, I
Wow.
have slept in some of the nastiest places, but I didn't want to leave, and I'm glad I didn't, because if I had left, I wouldn't have met the people that I needed to meet to put out that album, to put the band, put a whole rock band together again. And I basically, it was a blessing that for that to happen to me, because it really grounded me and the humility and humble factor of, you can just lose everything like that, but you know uh, what are you made of? Like, what's your metal? Like, what are you made of in order to tough something out if you want it? And I wanted to be there. I wanted to live there. I wanted to play music there, and I wasn't going to leave no matter what. I was ready to bleed for it. So you know that's what I did. So that album, that whole album, basically, there's a lot of points in that album about, touches on certain things of that part of my life.
It must have been difficult to be homeless, Mike,
Oh
because
yeah.
you had nowhere to sleep. And when you did find areas to sleep, wasn't it going through your mind thinking, what am I doing here? Maybe I should go back
You
and
know,
stay with my brother. Like,
okay.
what was going through your mind? Because you had to deal with your mental health because you were laid off from your job. You had
Yeah.
nothing. How did you
No.
manage? Rock
I
bottom.
It's so funny. I mean, you know what? If that happened to me now, I don't think I could handle it the way I handled it then. But I was in my 20s, and I was like used to being like, in a van with a bunch of guys and doing crazy stuff and being broken down on the highway for a night and sleeping in the woods. And being from Florida, we camped out a lot in the swamp and stuff. Like, it's and I'm very confident in my personal ability by myself to survive things. So I always thought, like, when I moved to Philadelphia, it was a very, very tough situation for the whole band, but we did it together, and that's a whole nother story. But um, New York was, I never thought of being out. I never thought of being put out. I've always thought of, well, what's today? What's going to happen today? Because every day something interesting happens, something funny happens, something, you know, I think the last thing I wanted to think about was being cold or being hungry, or, I just thought, hey, this is the life that I chose to live, and I'm going to see what happens today. And, I grew up in a household to where I was taught, if you can look at yourself in the mirror every day and look at that person and say, I'm doing right now what I want to do with my life, come hell or high water, you're succeeding. And so that's the way I thought about it. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. And sure enough, that life has a pendulum. And I learned that when the pendulum is super bad, at some point, it's got to swing all the way back to good. But then when it's good, at some point, it's going to swing back to bad. And if you can understand that kind of a state of mind, you can get through any hardships in your life, because nothing lasts forever. Everything changes. And again, that's why it's a secret, people. It's like, you know,
Wow, what an experience you must have gone through. And plus, Ed and Maddie, everyone, like they have their own experiences. And but I can't imagine like being homeless and even being kicked out of a place because, oh, I want to bring my friend in here, so I'm going to kick
yeah,
you out. Like now you know what type of person they are. I thought you were my friend.
Yeah,
Now,
no, I was. Yeah, I actually, I think I actually shed a few tears over that one because I really thought these guys were my friends. Just because where I grew up in Florida, I'm very loyal to my friends to a fault, and if I consider somebody a friend, I will. And I'm, I get yelled at all the time by people for this, but a lot of times I will put people before me in order to help them or to connect them with something to better their lives or whatever. And I just and the hard part is when you find out, yeah, that's you, man. That's not them. That's you. Because when the tide turns, it's like you don't mean anything. And so I learned a lot about human nature and you know people, and it's really helped me deal with for the rest of my life up till today how I deal with people. Like I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but if things go sideways, I don't get too worked up about it because I'm like, well, that's who you are, and then you got to live with that.
I'm sort of like that type of person. You say, like, I'm a Christian, so someone said, "What can I pray for you?" And said, "No, don't worry about pray for me. Just pray for such and such." Or they ask me all the time, "What do you want for Christmas?" I say, "What do I really need? I got everything I want. I can see, I can hear. I'm
Yeah,
independent. What do I really need? I got a job. I don't need money, so I got
yeah,
money. So, and then suddenly they end up giving me something, and I either use it or I don't, or they're
yeah.
like, "Oh, that's right. I did want that, but I totally forgot. How did you know?" Stuff like that. But I'm sort of like you. I like to make other people happy
Yeah.
because when you finally do get the thing that you're wanting and you're like, it's not really making me happy. Is it really going to add to your life? I think what adds to your life is making people happy and putting them before you and getting them off the ground and getting their feet somewhere. And you can just say, you know what, I feel good.
Yeah,
And even if they
yeah.
say, I don't want to be a friend anymore because you got me where I wanted to be, not you, so now I don't need you anymore, I'll be like, that's fine. Success
Oh
with
yeah,
that. And then a
yeah.
new set of people come in your life.
And then
Um,
a new set of people come in your life. Exactly.
yeah. Yeah. So you're like my brother now, so I'm gonna adopt you right now. Where's the form? Are you a lawyer?
I
Just kidding.
I'm in.
Um,
I'm in. What am I changing
yeah,
my name to?
yeah, that's great. I'm gonna change my last name to Roy. Just kidding. So, so now you have the second album, Phoenix,
Yeah,
and this has like a rock twist between the likes of Nick Lowe and Tom Petty. Nick Lowe,
yeah,
Cruel
yeah.
to Be
So
Kind. Nick Lowe. Wow. Why did
it
they
was.
think that? That's
I got
strange.
that a lot for some. I got that. I was like Nick Lowe. And people are like, "Yeah, it reminds me of Nick Lowe." And I was like, "It's to me Nick Lowe's so poppy and writes such great rock pop songs." And but the funny thing is, like, it was a different producer, and the producer on Dog Street was like, these songs you wrote, these are Brooklyn guys. And they're like, hey, Roy, they're like, these songs you wrote, we can do two things with them. We can either go English rock or we can do American rock. What do you want to do with them? And I'm just like, well, let's go like, American rock. So we did American rock. So with Phoenix, those set of tunes I started writing. Um, and then my producer, who was my guitar player for a little while during the Dog Street years, he did a tour with us called Summer of the Dog, and he's from Bahrain, but he grew up in London. And his name is Michelle, and he's like, I think I'm gonna produce this album, but you gotta trust me on this album, and I'm gonna make this song. I'm gonna make this album lean more towards like English rock and English rock style. And I was like, okay, cool, man. So I would bring in the songs. We had 3 or 4 days pre-production. It was just three of us that recorded the whole album together, and we we did it so guerrilla style too. And he ended up taking the tracks. He went home to Bahrain. He took the tracks with him, and while he was in Bahrain, he recorded all the piano. He got some street musicians, which he did not tell me who they were, so I couldn't credit him, to do the percussion. And he brought in all these people, and he did all this like killer stuff. Then came back to the States, and was just like, okay, I just fleshed out these songs, and I was like, holy crap, this sounds great. That was so much. It was such a fast record to make. I've never made a record that fast, and he was absolutely amazing. And now I think he lives. Oh my God, where does he live? He went back to London, and now but he lives in, I want to say, Australia or something like that. But he's doing this crazy spoken word. He's in a band that backs up this amazing spoken word guy, and they put all these crazy albums out. But I still keep in touch with him. But he was fantastic to work with, and all the people that the guy who played the drums on it, Kevin. McAdams, he was in a band in the 90s called Elephant, and I think they were on Geffen or Columbia or something, but he did all the drums on it, and he's a great friend. And then his guitar player that was in Elephant, this guy Mod, engineered it and mixed it. And then we brought it to a guy, Fred Kevorkian, to master it, and he had done like the White Stripes and like a bunch of those kind of like Black Keys, all those kind of like lo-fi high profile bands. So he mastered it, and it was that was a good time to make that record. And then I moved, and that's when I moved here, when that album came out. So that was kind of my album talking about living in New York and then moving somewhere new and starting over situation.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about spoken word artists. We had one on our podcast, and his name was Anthony, but he goes by the name of Wordsmith. Check out that episode that on my podcast, Wordsmith.
Definitely.
And he's a spoken word artist. And there's a song that he did called The Promise. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Powerful song. Powerful song. Very cool. I asked him the difference between rap and words, something that's like totally different. So like if you can tell between rap and spoken word, it's not the same thing, but it sounds like the same thing.
Yeah. It's definitely two separate styles. I've seen a lot of the open mics and stuff that I've been at and stuff. I've seen spoken word, and then like they can rap and stuff. And it's definitely two different styles of throwing lyrics out, and it's cool because it's all rhythmic. Everything is like a drum. Everything is, I played the drums in my marching band in school and stuff, and it was like, that's how I love drummers, but You
mean you were that boom, boom, boom?
No,
boom
I was this guy.
Oh, that guy.
Cadences. I love cadences. I'm all about. I
love cadence.
Yeah, that's how I write my songs. I try to write in cadences and numbers and syllables.
Do you remember the boom, boom, boom?
Yeah, that's the bass drum. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. I was the guy in front of him.
Wow, yeah. Wow, that must have been quite an experience being a marching band. You go boom, boom, boom.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Funny. It was my friend Anthony. He played the bass drum. I played the tenor drum. And that was in marching band. We did the parades, and then in the concert part of the year, I played clarinet and he played the bassoon. So
the bassoon. Oh my goodness, what an instrument! And I'm like, that's funny.
When do you hear bassoon in rock and roll? Like I'm thinking of that now, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard the bassoon go through an amp or something. That could be kind of cool. I don't know.
But anything can be an instrument. Like, you ever seen these kids on the street and they're using like pails for drumming?
Oh yeah,
and it sounds really good. They're pails, like paint pails and everything, really good.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah,
in the subways, like you'll. Well, I don't know about now. I've been in New York in so long. I don't know. I know the last time I went to New York to busk in the subway, you have to get a certificate. You have to actually go and apply to busk in the subway. Whereas when I was there doing it, it was a Wild West. You just couldn't go on someone's territory. So I got ran off. I don't know how many times by, and I got ran off by this really, really old Asian lady. And she was playing, what was she playing? She was playing some kind of a flute or something. She was a regular, and she got really mad at me because I had shown, and I didn't realize it was her territory, her stop, or her area. And oh man, she gave me the what for. There was a like you there was definitely like territories, and I learned all this in New York when I was doing it. It was so interesting because it's a whole nother scene. But
Yeah,
yeah, crazy instruments. Some lady was playing the saw with a bow.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that, and they're really good. And then there's something
Really
called
good.
yeah, the during the mystery theater or during like mystery movies, whatever, you hear this kind of sound like woo.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
called a theremin, a
Oh, a
theremin,
theremin is with your hands.
and yeah, that's right. So they
It's
use
like
that a lot for mystery theater and masterpiece theater. Yeah. So the guy is playing that in the subway, woo, and I had to ask him what that was. He said it's called a theremin. I'm like, wow. So that's where they get the music from. You know,
yeah.
that's
What's
interesting.
funny, Maddie's old keyboard actually had that built in, so we would always mess around with that at rehearsal.
Oh,
The
nice.
theremin, oh, it's so
Oh, that
crazy.
must be fun to be a member of the band. That's awesome.
It was so crazy.
Wow. So why did you decide to release Truck Stop Sushi in a limited edition vinyl? And how did you
Um,
get the people to press that vinyl?
so Truck Stop Sushi was we were working with the producer John Paul DeBard at out of Studio 73 in Hellertown, Pennsylvania, and he wanted to put out. He wanted to kind of bring us into a few different studios to record two singles that we had at the time. We had a single called Saturn Girl and a single called Hungry, which was written for a B horror movie, which was totally terrible, but the song was awesome. And so we went to Philadelphia with into Cambridge Sound Studios by Jim Salamone, who used to be the producer of Teddy Pendergrass. And we
Wow.
recorded in one day. We recorded Saturn Girl, which had a certain sound, really, really good radio sound, and this and that. And then we went to our friend Michael Carr right after that, out in the woods, way out in the woods, like in Pennsylvania, and we recorded the Hungry. And he's a country artist and he's a country producer, so it had this whole other sound to it. So we had these two new songs, and then we thought we've been playing out a lot. And this was back when so Craig was the drummer, and Jason Hedrington was another close friend of mine who left during the COVID time. But he was on. He played the Moog and accordion and keys. He did a little bit of singing too. So that's where Maddie came in to like take his place, and then Pete took Craig's place. And
Wow.
so Jason had recorded a bunch of stuff on for all this stuff, like the whole intro for Saturn Girl and everything. And so we decided to go actually into the recording studio, the third studio, which was Studio 73, John Paul's, the producer's studio. And we got, I think, 25 of our friends to come in, and we did a live show for them. And we did all the songs that we had normally, that had been on Phoenix and Dog Street, like the fan favorites that we always get asked to play. We did those songs, but then live. And we hooked it
Hmm.
all up live. We did a video for, we recorded the whole thing, everything else. And we decided, okay. And it was John Paul's idea, let's put out a record. He's like, but it's going to be from three different studios. It's like two new songs, side A, side B, and then filled out with songs people have already heard, produced, but now we're going to play them. They're going to hear them live. And so we said, okay, cool. What are we going to call this thing? It's fresh. It's old. We don't know how it's going to turn out. And so Jason was telling us a story. He was from, where is he from? Wisconsin. Wisconsin? Yeah. And he was like, dude, I was going back to Wisconsin and I got food poisoning at this truck stop. And I was like, well, what happened? He goes, man, they were selling sushi. And I'm like, you're in the middle of America and you're buying sushi at a truck stop. He goes, it looked a little tired. But I thought, I gotta try it because he's crazy. I gotta try it. So he got food poisoning, almost killed him off of this truck stop sushi. And I'm like, it's so funny because sushi, it's like something new, but it's old, and like you gotta give it a taste. And so I came up with the design for the album cover with one of my friends here, Bill. He's a graphic artist, Bill McCrae. And so we put that all together, and that was It ended up being such a fun project, and I think we put a Nick Cave song on it. I don't know if you're familiar with Nick Cave.
Yes,
Um,
I like Nick Cave. Oh yeah.
yeah, I love Nick Cave. We did the ship song. We put that on it. And oh man, we had so much fun with that. And so we put that out. We said let's just put out 200 of them. So we put out 200 of them. We went through those, and then I said, people probably still want to hear this, so let's put it out digitally. So let's remaster it, because, and I didn't know this, you cannot master a record the same way you master a CD. It's two
Mm.
totally different things. So, and I learned this, and I was like, oh my God, I never knew this. So that was our first time we put out a record, our first vinyl. So we got that mastered, and I said, but I want people to still hear it. And so how can we put it on a digital platform? So I went to a fourth studio and got it remastered, but just a piece of it. So there was like 6 songs instead of 10, just 6 songs. I think it was 6, 4 or 6. And then we put that out, and I called it the bento box. And so we put that out on digital platforms.
Why didn't you investigate before you just said, "Hey, let's put on a first limited edition vinyl with truck stop sushi"? Didn't you go like, I like to do that, but let's see. So what were the difficulties with getting it to the point where okay, now we can print it? Like you must have had some difficulties, like finances,
We
or
did, yeah.
your Jason Hedrington said, "Are you nuts?" Nuh-uh.
No. So it's funny because it's actually, I think it may have been Jason's idea, because Jason is the biggest record collector and music nerd I've ever met. He
Wow,
is like with people with baseball cards. He's like that with rock and roll and all kinds of genres, but especially rock and roll. He can name you the studio it was recorded, who was there, who produced it,
nice,
who engineered it. He's that guy.
cool.
And he's a long time ago, he was actually, I think he did a stint as a DJ for a long time too. But he is he's such a magical alien, that Jason. And he knew a lot about records. And so when we learned we could get this pressed, we decided, okay, so we got the funds together through some people, and we ended up experimenting and said, let's just experiment and see what happens. And we learned a lot along the way. We learned a lot about, the thickness of the record, and, and
Wow.
all that stuff. And it was an eye opener. But again, so through the same, but it was the turnaround. The turnaround was mad. It was like a year or something like that. And for something happened in the process of this, the turnaround, we got those records back, I think within 6 months. And so that was super fast at the time because they were so backed up all over there's only a certain amount of record pressings, company or manufacturers, because a lot of them had sold all their equipment off. And so a lot of them
Yeah.
just closed shop. And Jack White, in Third Man Records,
Wow.
reinvented that whole scene here in America and opened up a whole new. And then they had just gone public. And so they were like, okay, we're not just going to keep it to ourselves. They started pressing for other companies. So I don't know if it came from them but it was through, we had done it through disc makers, I think it was. And the turnaround was like 6 months, and it was a lot of money. And we were like, all right, but it worked out in the end. And and I don't know if I told you this because I haven't put it up on our website yet, but the Phoenix album, we just got a limited run of the Phoenix album. We just got in 200 copies of that. We had to remaster it. Came out beautifully. We redid the cover. We redid all the artwork. And I mean, it looks amazing. It sounds amazing. It's on super thick. The records are like heavy. I mean, it looks great. So I'll be putting that on our website and stuff when we start slinging those out. But that'll be our second record.
I'd like to get a vinyl record of Roy and the Secret People, but I'd like to have every member of the band autograph it,
Yeah,
and then I'll buy it because
cool.
I I'm sort of the person that likes to literally, In the summertime, we have down here a little town called, and they have like all these, I guess you call them musicians, street musicians, and you
Yeah.
probably have to audition to go on the side, like near a restaurant and play. And I like to buy their CDs, and I like to ask them to autograph it because even if you don't know who the musician is, you say, "Listen, I have a Roy and the Secret People vinyl album, Phoenix or whatever the first one, autographed by every member of the band," because there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of bands out there.
Yeah, there's so, oh my
And
God. Yeah.
but you may not know Roy and the Secret People, but I know the guy Roy,
Yeah.
and I know all about the band, and I got a Roy and the Secret People vinyl album autographed by every band member. You know, I like
Yeah.
collecting those, so I might want to get one from you if you can get
Okay.
them autographed for me. So, how many do you have left?
So, well, we just started selling them at our shows. So we just kind of did a so cliche. We started doing a secret thing, and we started
Mm.
selling them at our last 3 or 4 shows. We started selling them at. Um, so we still have a good chunk of them left. So because we haven't really put it out to the public yet, we haven't even pushed it yet. Um, so, but yeah, definitely, I can get you one of those easily.
Yes, please. I like getting
You're gonna give me
merchandise.
your address and all that stuff,
I
and then
will. I will.
oh,
I will
I'll
send
send
you.
you all kinds of stuff. I have
Yes,
so many. Like, you like stickers? We have so
stickers,
many stickers.
everything. I
We
love
have
getting
everything.
merchandise. Everyone, I want merchandise. Send me merchandise and I'll do like a
Oh my
video of
gosh.
opening them. Everyone likes to watch an unboxing video. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you got the vinyls pressed and then you
Yeah.
got the CD pressed,
Oh,
did you ever like you play both of them? People saying that vinyl sounds a lot better than CD. Is it true?
it's true.
Yeah.
If you have a good, really good sounds, if you have a great record player, I have a crappy record player and it keeps breaking on me, and the belt is loose, and so I can't enjoy anything on it. But I have heard these records in really good situations and on really good record player like stereos, and we actually had done a few record store release parties, and where we have this Phoenix record in, and the Truck Stop Sushi, but what the Phoenix one, and it sounds so bigger and richer, and and I love the way it sounded on digital. I love the way it sounds on CD. I love the way the MP3 is cool or whatever. It's a little more compressed, but on the vinyl, wow, it just sounds huge and round and lush, and uh, I'm just floored by it. But we when we put that out, yeah, definitely that'll be on our website and everything. But that record, we ended up finding. So we were like, okay, this record's gonna take like 6 months to a year to get back. Then we found this record label pressing plant in Czechoslovakia. And we're
Really?
like, okay. And it was way cheaper than, okay, we're like, oh, it's cheaper. That might not be good. We don't know. We got it back within 2 months. And it was so professional, so legit. It looked amazing. I mean, I couldn't believe the turnaround on this was like, pow. And
Wow.
yeah, we were blown away. So we're going to be using this company from now on. So
This is amazing. I'd really love to hear that there are places in the world that still do certain things that no other place will do. Like, I mean, come on, getting rid of vinyl album pressing machines and things
they
like that.
did.
Did they realize that that was going to come back?
No, I don't think they did. I don't think they did because it was so big for so long. And oh, so I just heard this the other day because we are talking about releasing our last 2 singles on 45s. And
Mm.
so we're like, okay, so we started looking into that, and we found out the turnaround time everywhere is like shot. And we're like, why is it shot? It's because of Taylor Swift. We're like, what? She
Oh,
jammed up all the record pressings because of her last record. They can't sell them fast enough in vinyl because I think she did like however many covers, like the actual album cover. She did like, so people want to collect all the album covers of the same album. And brilliant move, but it just jammed everything up. And so we're like, okay, we gotta wait
Wow.
for Swift to die down a little bit, like that record to die down.
That'll never happen.
That'll never happen. What is happening? I don't even know.
She's a billionaire right now. And apparently
a billionaire. I read that today.
She's got a really good business model, and many musicians would follow her. The only thing is that now I heard she's doing witch spells and casting spells, and she's into Satan and voodoo and all that. And she's a multi-billionaire. And not only that, I can't remember what company owned the rights to her songs, but she said, you know what? I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to take back my music. So what she did is she re-recorded her first 2 albums. She wants to keep ownership of her music. So how do you do that? You re-record your first 2 albums.
Interesting.
What a genius. That's why she's a billionaire.
That's a shrewd move.
Yeah.
That is. That's really smart.
That's why I don't understand why Sting and I don't know who else, Sting and Neil Young, whatever, sold all their catalog to, what was it? Was it Universal, or I can't remember? And Sting sold his entire catalog for $300 million, and I'm like, why?
Whoa!
Why? I mean, Paul McCartney, Beatles did that, and Michael Jackson bought all the rights to the Beatles music, and then you go off and buy it again. I mean, why did you do it in the first place?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know.
No.
That was one thing that I've learned. Like money, you need it to live, and you need it, but it's such a cliche. But it's not. Money isn't everything. It doesn't. You could be. I don't know. That's just me. But I think like when you're creating something, whether any kind of an art form, and you're not creating it for a company, you're creating it, for yourself, or and people are responding to it. It's a part of you, and I don't know. I don't know. I struggle with that, but
Mike, to tell you the truth, I'm totally thinking of getting back into vinyl. Like my brother still has his stereo and turntable.
Yeah.
But they have turntables you can buy that actually record the vinyl onto a USB stick and stuff. And I want like a pure old. I remember when I was young, I used to just sit there listening to old albums from the 60s and 70s and just listening to it. And now you got CDs, and now you got Spotify, and yet, like it's coming.
You can't read you're not interested in reading liner notes. You're not interested in looking at the pictures. You're not interested in the book. Sometimes they'll come with like photo booklets or like cool ways to like give you the lyrics. It's like all of that was a lost art form for a long time, but there has been a resurgence in bringing that back. It's not where it used to be, and I don't think it'll ever get back to where it used to be, but at least it's getting healthier, because I think that really, like growing up, I think that was what really connected us to music, was the physical, like we were in charge of taking the record out, touching it, putting it on, making sure it doesn't scratch. There was so much interaction between us and the music that's why we become like, these music heads, and we love music. And I think it's so we never thought music as disposable. It's so disposable now. It's so just an afterthought. It's so TikTok-y. It's so all that. It's like it's devalued itself to a degree to where a lot of people don't take this very serious at all. But I can't imagine life without music.
So what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence in the music industry?
I don't know, man. I'm scared. I think that nobody wants to look at that. I think the guys who invent it, probably watched all those horror movies to show you why you shouldn't do that. And I don't think they care. I think it's a human. I think these programmers and these guys, I think it's a human nature for us to always try to create something that is so beyond us, especially like in the tech world and stuff. to make life easier, but we don't look at the long run of how that can turn around and actually bite us in the back. And
Yeah.
we got the Wachowski brothers, doing The Matrix, which shows you some stuff. We got, there's all of these science fiction artists throughout, authors throughout the years who have shown you, who called this way back in the 30s and then in the 20s, who talked about this. I just think that it's human ego, and I don't know what to think of it, because it's so brand new, and it's gonna happen so fast, and it's gonna grow so fast because of where we're at technology wise, that I kind of think it's not just gonna be music. I mean, already we have all the chat. I know that the chat stuff. We have all the art stuff. My artist friends called me when all these art programs are coming out, when you could just write and type in some words and it gives you a painting, and they're freaking out. And that was a couple years ago. And I don't know where it's going to end. I don't know. All I know is I'm glad I lived a lot of my time in music to where I got to experience music and art without that. But I feel bad for kids now, because they're going to have to navigate through this and I don't know what's going to lose the human emotion and the humanness of art with the artificial intelligence art. Because pretty soon you're not going to be able to differentiate between the two, and then at some point it's going to be so blended that I just think. And then it just comes down to, some guys in the subway eating cheese sandwich, just, typing into his phone a couple words. And next thing you know, he's winning a Grammy, or he's showing art in the museum. And like he was just eating a cheese sandwich and putting 3 words in his phone. I don't know. But I don't get a good feeling from it. And I'm not afraid of it. I just don't know.
Well, part of the SAG and after strike was body scanning, using AI to body scan an actor, so an actor can be used without paying them. So if you want, you can have Bruce Willis in the new movie playing alongside of Burt Lancaster and all the dead actors.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get paid for it. So that's where it's going. That's it. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, and also in music, if you look at all the top TikToks and all the top streaming stuff that's video wise and everything, it's all kids doing cover music. Very rarely does something stick out. Every once in a while, there'll be an original song, but almost 90% is all kids covering stuff. And I'm like, wow, it's really reinforcing for people to regurgitate what's already been created as if it's new, instead of doing something that's new and then getting that connection with other people. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you, Mike, especially the whole fact with you have TikTok stars and they have billions of followers and all they do is silly things and they're multimillionaires because the more millions of followers, whatever you get, and viral the video is, you get money, you get a lot of money just for doing something stupid on TikTok.
Yeah.
And yet you got a musician out there, starving musician, a starving artist who makes great music. It's not AI. They're not using autotune. They're using their purebred voice, vocals, and their talent to create music, and they don't get squat for it.
They don't get squat.
So yeah.
It's getting dark in here. The sun's going down.
Yeah. Yay.
But
excellent. Love that.
It's crazy, man.
Love that. Well, Mike, before we end the stream, I want you to give everyone a word of advice to up and coming musicians.
Oh, word of advice. My word of advice is don't be afraid to express yourself, your true self, in front of people that you may think may judge you for it. Because 9 times out of 10, they're not judging you. you are thinking they are, but they're not, and you have the guts to express yourself. And that is where creativity lies, within that leaping off the cliff, whether it's music or drawing or art or what have you, in any of the art forms, acting, whatever. Never be afraid to express yourself and to create something. Maybe that's never been created, but yeah, I would just say, just don't be afraid of what other people think.
I like that, Mike. That's beautiful. Beautiful words. Beautiful advice. You get that, everyone? Ah! Hey, we can we can start a record. Let's say
We could.
That's our single right there. Ah! Ah! Everyone, everything will be listed down below in description. And yeah, really appreciated this interview. Really kind that you're here and to hear everything about your group. So we're going to end the stream, everyone. Mike Roi and the Secret People out. See you, Mike.
Later.